Hey there, welcome back to PodLogic and welcome to the first episode of PodLogic Outside. As you can see, I'm outside. Honestly, I was getting really tired of recording in the studio and I figured why not combine throwing this on YouTube as well as seeing if I can do this actually outdoors and see if it can sound good. But that's for my own personal, I don't even know. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about podcast launch must haves. And I'm looking at my notes over here, which is why you'll see me glancing away. But there are going to be three major things that you want to have before you're launching your podcast. Now, it's not really as simple as just recording one episode and putting it out there. There's actually a little bit more of a strategic route that you can take. So we'll start with your trailer episode. Now, what is the trailer episode of your podcast? Think of it like the trailer of a movie or a television show. Who are you? What is this podcast about? When are the first episodes dropping? Why are you doing this podcast? And it's a great piece of pre-launch marketing to be able to get people to subscribe to the podcast before they actually see the first episodes that are going live. And from a distribution standpoint, you need some kind of audio to be published in order to be approved on places like Apple Podcasts, which you want to be on. And you don't want to put your content out too early in order to get approved. So the trailer episode works as sort of a dual-ended sword, I guess. But anyway, having that trailer episode that's really high energy, talking about what people can expect from the podcast is really going to give a sense of professionalism and high production value to your podcast that you wouldn't normally get if you were just recording one episode and uploading it. So having a trailer episode is absolutely key. Number two is having 2 to 3 episodes totally ready to go and launching them on the day of launch. But why 2 to 3 episodes? Why not just one? Well, if you've noticed with the model with Netflix and this whole binge culture is one episode is not enough to satisfy our consumption appetites anymore. I mean, if you watched Tiger King, would you have wanted to wait an episode a week for Tiger King? I watched it all in like 2 days. So having those 2 to 3 episodes gives listeners an opportunity to sort of binge your content, get really hooked into the show, and much more likely to subscribe and become a returning listener. So that's the key with having 2 to 3 episodes ready to launch. And it also gives you the ability to sort of perfect your process before you actually release these episodes. So maybe you have 2 episodes where you go, this needs a little bit more editing. I need to tighten these up a little bit. And now you have an actual catalog of episodes that you can look at and see, are these episodes similar in terms of their editing? Do they sound the same? Am I improving from an interviewer standpoint or from just a host standpoint? What can I do differently to be better going forward? So it really allows you to get feedback from not only yourself, but from other people before you actually put these episodes out there, again, rather than just recording one episode and putting it out there for the world to see, mistakes and all. Number 3, having 2 episodes ready to go in the bank that you don't launch. Now, the key here is you want to stay ahead of your content release schedule. So say you launch your podcast, everyone knows about it, you're getting downloads, and your 2 to 3 episodes are out and ready to go. But what if your next guest falls through? Everyone's working from home. People have to deal with kids. Things get crazy. Podcast interviews are going to get canceled. Your schedule is going to get crazy if you're just a solo host. Your co-host is going to have a crazy schedule. There are going to be weeks during this process where you aren't able to put out a podcast. So having 2 episodes ready to go that you can just slide into publish really quickly, you are going to stay ahead of the game in terms of your content calendar. So always being 2 episodes ahead of your release schedule is just best practice rule of thumb in terms of having a smooth, consistent release schedule, which brings me into my final point for this episode is pick a day of the week and pick a time of day that you want to release each podcast episode and stay consistent with it, because similar to, I guess it doesn't really matter now, but when TV was at its peak, you would watch Walking Dead Sunday night at 9 p.m. That's how you knew it. It wants to be the same with your podcast. You want to give people a reason to put your podcast into their routine. So if you have a podcast that releases daily at noon, then people are having their lunch break. People are commuting to work. Maybe they're commuting home. I guess not so much anymore. But it still rings true. Having that consistent release schedule allows people to put your podcast into their routine, which is how you create recurring listeners. It's how you create a dedicated audience, and it's how you can really grow your audience, because they know every Wednesday at noon, they can expect your podcast to show up. That's all I've got for you today. Those are some podcast launch must-haves. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, go ahead, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Hopefully this isn't too weird of a change from the older podcast content I was doing. But if you want to subscribe there as well, totally go for it. Up to you. And if you want to learn more about Straight Up Podcasts, you can check out our website at straightuppodcast.com. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday.